The public conflict between Erika Kirk and Candace Owens is one of the strangest and most revealing fractures inside the contemporary American conservative movement. Since the death of Charlie Kirk, Owens has given so much attention to attacking Erika Kirk, including producing an extended multi-episode series titled The Bride of Charlie, alongside her regular podcast content.
So welcome to Bride of Charlie.
We have nothing to hide.
I watched the entire series on 2x speed. That was more than 8 hours of content. Across these episodes, Owens repeatedly frames Erika as manipulative and opportunistic and potentially connected to darker hidden truths surrounding Charlie Kirk's life and death. Much of the rhetoric operates through insinuation rather than direct accusation. She makes comparisons, drops suspicious details, raises questions, implies patterns, and then leave the audience do the rest of the work for her.
Find something, Rhode Islanders, hit me up. More tips at CandaceOwens.com. More tips at CandaceOwens.com.
This style is deeply characteristic of Candace Owens' communication strategy. Rather than making straightforward factual arguments, she often constructs emotional narratives built from selective details and witness statements only she detains. The goal is to create a mood of suspicion, the perfect recipe for building outrage while keeping lawyers' fees low. In her portrayal, Erika Kirk becomes not merely a political rival but a manufactured persona, someone allegedly shaped by manipulation from childhood, groomed by her mother into performance and ambition, and connected through family networks to shady businesses. Whether these claims are true, exaggerated, or entirely speculative is secondary to how they function rhetorically. What makes the feud fascinating, however, is that these two women are in many ways extraordinarily similar. The hostility between them hides the fact that they are products of the same generation, the same media environment, and the same ideology. They are not opposites, they mirror each other in their respective relationship with their partner and in their climb to power. Their hatred is manufactured by them and promoted by a culture that loves to see powerful women tear themselves apart. This is the story of a feud, sure, but this is also the story of one of the biggest fractures the American right has ever experienced. My name is Alice, welcome back to my channel. So I was invited to a conference in Lisbon the other week, and when I landed, I did the usual thing, turned off airplane mode, waited for signal, and nothing. No connection, no data, and after a few minutes I realized I basically had no reliable internet at all, which put me immediately into panic mode because I needed maps, messages, conference schedules, emails, everything. I was also trying to coordinate with people from the event, but after a few minutes I realized I basically had no reliable internet at all, which immediately put me into panic mode because I needed maps, messages, conference schedules, emails. I was also trying to coordinate with people from the event, and you really realize how dependent you are on data the second you lose it. We eventually figured it out, but the whole experience made me realize how useful something like Saily would have been in that situation. And you guessed it, Saily is the sponsor of today's video. Saily is an eSIM app that lets you set up mobile data before you travel, so when you land, you're already connected. No swapping physical SIM cards, no searching around airports for SIM vendors, and no expensive roaming charges. It works in over 200 destinations worldwide. The setup is really simple too. You just download the app, choose the country you're traveling to, pick a data plan, and activate everything directly from your phone before the trip. Then when you arrive, it's ready to go. Honestly, if you travel even just a few times a year, it just removes one of those annoying problems that always seem to happen at the worst possible time. So if you want to check it out, download Saily using the link below and use code ALICE at checkout to get 15% off your first data plan. Thank you, Saily, for sponsoring the video, and now let's go back to it. Both Erika Kirk and Candace Owens are millennial women born within months of each other. Candace Owens in 1989 and Erika Kirk, born Erika Francois, in late 1988. Both came of age during the rise of social media and millennial culture. Candace Owens even had an account for her cat called Shit My Cat Thinks. Erika Kirk, on the other hand, took the hipster aesthetic to another level. Look at this picture, for example. Neither belongs to the old institutional Republican world. Instead, both emerge in the age where politics politics increasingly merge with influencer culture, with lifestyle branding. At the surface level, they appear very different. Owens is confrontational, her public identity relies on conflict. Having watched some of her episodes on Brigitte Macron and then the entire 8-episode series The Bride of Charlie, her obsession with Erika Kirk is borderline pathological yet legitimized by a larger quest of seeking justice for Charlie. To Candace, Erika is not the soft, diverted, traditional Christian she claims to be, but an opportunist. She met Charlie at the Turning Point USA office opening and later went on what she thought was a job interview but ended up being a date. At that time, Candace Owens was working closely with Charlie on making the most out of the billionaires' donations Turning Point was receiving. They threw an event here, an event there, money was flowing, and Candace thought it would be a good idea to expand Turning Point's reach. In 2018, she launched Blexit, a campaign encouraging black voters to leave the Democratic Party, and also a nod to the Brexit campaign in the UK. That same year, she pushed to organize an event in London. This is where she met her future husband, George Farmer. Now, the parallels between their story and the one of Charlie and Erika are interesting, to say the least. In fact, a lot of Candace's criticism of Erika's opportunism, specifically the claim that Erika was seeking power at all costs through her relationships with well-connected individuals, well, that criticism could be made to George Farmer too. To give you more context, George Farmer is what I would call a nepo baby failure. He's the son of Michael Farmer, or Baron Farmer, a wealthy British metals businessman and member of the House of Lords in the UK. So I think it's fair to say that George had all the cards to succeed, yet he failed multiple times before settling into a comfortable position at JB News, the channel backing Nigel Farage, in which his dad has financial stakes. Flashback to 2018 though, George was involved in UK conservative politics and heard of Candace Owens' Blexit campaign, which echoed his own Brexit campaign. In late 2018, he showed up to a Turning Point event in the UK where she was scheduled to come.
You know, a couple of days afterwards, just being like, there's something different about this girl, there's something different about...
Had you met her yet or just seen her from stage?
We'd shaken hands and that was it.
The next day, he organized a big dinner to which Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens were invited. They showed up 3 hours late, but he managed to get a chat with them. He then traveled to Florida to see her speak, so in other words, he really wanted to get in her way. This echoes Erika's story. She knew of Charlie before they officially met. She saw him for the first time at the airport in the line for a flight to Israel, but didn't talk to him. Then they met again, like Candace and George, at a Turning Point event and organized a date soon after. They started officially dating in 2019 and got engaged the following year. Things went even faster for Candace and George. After the event in 2018, they called a few times, had long conversations about politics and life, and towards the end of the year, he asked her this.
How do you feel about getting married to me?
A few months later, and this is not a joke, George was named chairman of Turning Point UK. It only lasted a couple of months though. He also tried to get elected as a member of the European Parliament. It failed as well. Then he became the CEO of Parler, a conservative alternative of Twitter. You know, that was the time where Trump supporters started a bunch of conservative alternatives to traditional media platforms. Then George left Parler after a deal with Yi fell apart and became a stay-at-home father. No, I'm joking, he's not a stay-at-home father. But what he does now is a bit unclear, though that's often the case with Nepo kids. They just live off passive income or their parents' money. They occasionally get consulting or advising contracts just to make sure there's no gap in the CV. We don't have any publicly available info on George though, so I won't speculate on that. But what's clear is that both Erika and George come from wealthy and to some degree shady backgrounds, and their respective partners knew exactly what they were getting into and were perfectly fine with it. You see, Candace Owens is not the anti-establishment hero she wants us to think she is. Most of the criticism she makes of Erika Kirk can be reverted to herself. Erika's relationship with Charlie carries a lot of similarities with her relationship with George. So what is it then that truly motivates the feud between these two relatively similar, powerful women? Is it just girl fighting? These women can't help but tear each other apart? Being born around the same time in the late 1980s, we can say that both Candace Owens and Erika Kirk grew up in an era defined by girl power and pop feminism. They are two ambitious women who resonated with their generation's feminist goal to take control of their lives and careers to seek independence from patriarchal norms. In 2015, for example, Candace Owens ran Degree 180, a marketing agency and commentary blog that published openly anti-conservative content. Owens herself harshly criticized Republicans Republicans, the Tea Party, and Donald Trump, using the sarcastic, socially progressive tone common to online liberal culture at the time. Here are examples of what she wrote, quote, "batshit crazy antics of the Republican Tea Party." She also added that, quote, "the good news is they will eventually die off peacefully in their sleep, and then we can get right on with the obvious social change that needs to happen immediately." Her political shift began in 2016 with a failed project called socialautopsy.com, a website aimed at exposing online harassment by linking offensive posts to users' real identities. The project was criticized as a form of public shaming and potential doxing. After facing backlash and online harassment herself, Owens increasingly aligned with right-wing internet figures connected to the Gamergate era, who framed her as a victim of liberal intolerance. She later described this experience as the moment she became conservative overnight. Now, shifting political ideologies overnight is a strange concept to me. How strong were your values in the first place? How can you trust someone like this? Anyway, Erika's trajectory, on the other hand, is harder to trace because of a few gaps here and there. Gaps that can easily be filled by conspiracy theorists like Candace Owens. What's clear though is that Erika Kirk was actively looking to climb the social ladder and was inspired by her entrepreneurial mother, Lori. She was the stereotypical 2010s boss babes. I genuinely don't know how else to describe her.
I come from a bloodline of entrepreneurs, and I learned from my mom, how to basically run a company, and that's how I was able to formulate my nonprofit.
It's only when she met Charlie Kirk and had children that Erika publicly stepped back from the boss babe image and adopted one that worked for Turning Point USA. Now keep in mind that Candace Owens was witnessing this the whole time. She had been heavily involved in Turning Point USA and knew Charlie before Erika did. She was allegedly at the airport when Erika first saw Charlie and was also at the Turning Point USA event where Erika properly met him. Candace quickly understood that Erika wasn't just a girlfriend. Erika's past experiences showed that she, like Candace, had built experience in leadership and media. Both women had and still have the drive of millennial girl boss entrepreneurship, and I think they recognized that in each other. But in a patriarchal society, and especially in conservative spaces, there's no room for two powerful women in the same space.
Yeah.
That competitiveness is palpable throughout Candace's series, whose title, The Bride of Charlie, already reveals how little respect she has for the woman she perceives as her competitor.
I specifically remember us telling Erika almost repeatedly to not be the CEO and to go home. Go home, be with your kids. And the people who were doing the yelling at us were saying the opposite. Let her stay in the public eye, let her be the CEO, let her fulfill Charlie's role.
Candace earned her role at Turning Point USA by working her way up. Erika, meanwhile, gained influence behind the scenes as Charlie's wife. And honestly, Erika was clever in that sense. She understood that in a conservative ecosystem, gaining power as a woman may look very different from the millennial girl boss narrative these two women were sold. She says God guided her toward Charlie, but personally what I see is someone being brought back to her place. Charlie effectively put an end to her girl boss era by repositioning her as a traditional Christian woman first and foremost. If she wanted to be involved in Turning Point USA, it would not be through a work contract, but through a marriage contract. Forget the corporate ladder, babe, you're signing marriage papers. As I mentioned in my previous video on the topic, there is no public record of Erika Kirk being paid while she worked alongside Charlie at Turning Point USA. Yet now, she's the one sitting at the head of the organization, balancing her CEO role with the expectation of traditional womanhood. That's what being a boss babe in a conservative ecosystem looks like. Candace and Erika accepted that dynamic early on and even turned it into an asset. Owens became famous because she challenged liberal ideas around race, feminism, and identity politics from the perspective of a black woman. She can say things that many white conservatives cannot publicly articulate without backlash. Erika Kirk similarly criticizes modern feminism and progressive culture while presenting herself as an accomplished entrepreneurial woman.
I know a lot of you do want a career, and I respect that because I do still have my own, but hold it into perspective. I don't want you to be chasing a paycheck and a title in a corner office and sacrifice such a short window that you have in this time period.
But let's go back to the feud itself, displayed through nasty attacks and endless insinuations. As one person commented under one of Candace's videos, quote, "Candace went so hard on Erika that I put my head into a battle bun!" Exclamation marks.
Every single evil thing that was done to me was done with your blessing.
Watching Candace's series The Bride of Charlie gives serious Mean Girls energy, and that's part of what makes it so entertaining for a large part of her audience. I mean, we're talking millions of viewers showing up for each episode, commenting, liking, participating. Now look at this other comment, liked by Candace Owens herself. Quote, "I just want to recognize how hard it must be for Candace to have to call out Erika, Charlie's wife. It's obvious you handled her with delicacy until you could no longer. I'm sure it's heartbreaking." 9.7 thousand likes. Now, I watched the whole series and I have to say, this is a very charitable interpretation. It's like when someone spends 30 minutes ranting about how awful another person is and then ends with something like, I'm only saying this because I genuinely care about them. Girl, no you don't. You're just mean. Mean Girls content gets attention, but it also shapes a broader vision of femininity as inherently toxic. In fact, the phrase toxic femininity, which emerged from the manosphere as a mirror to toxic masculinity, refers to behavior like verbal attacks, gossiping, and reputation damage. I first came across the term in a video made by a Jordan Peterson fan analyzing an interview between Peterson and a female journalist. The journalist was literally just doing her job, challenging Peterson's views, but the viewer framed it differently. To him, this was an example of toxic femininity, reputation damage, verbal aggression, emotional manipulation, and so on. So what the viewer did is that he took something completely normal, a journalist asking difficult questions, and recast it as something specifically feminine, a supposedly female flaw, a way to imply emotional irrationality and diminish the journalist's legitimacy. Now, you guessed it, the use of the phrase toxic femininity is very flawed to me because it's often deployed as a gotcha against feminism, implying a false equivalence between toxic masculinity and so-called toxic femininity, as if gossiping were equivalent to sexism and homophobia, or reputation damage were equivalent to sexual violence. No, those things do not operate on the same level. And to be clear, I also think toxic masculinity is itself an imperfect concept for different reasons, but unfortunately, that's a discussion for another video. For now, let's stick to the feud and let's use the phrase Mean Girls culture. I like the word culture because it reminds us that many traits stereotypically associated with women are not innate female qualities, but behaviors shaped by media and cultural narratives. As feminist scholar Jessica Ringrose explains, the obsession with female meanness did not emerge in a vacuum. It emerged at a specific historical moment, the rise of postfeminism in the late 1990s and early 2000s. So what we could call the formative years of both Erika Kirk and Candace Owens. Postfeminism developed in a context where women had undeniably gained greater visibility and professional opportunities. More women entered the workforce, more women attended university, and mainstream media increasingly celebrated female ambition. This created the impression that feminism had largely succeeded. Congratulations, ladies, you made it. Equality is here now. But postfeminism was never simply after feminism. It was a cultural sensibility that simultaneously borrowed from feminism while becoming skeptical of it. Feminism was framed as something necessary, but also excessive, outdated, and even responsible for new social problems. And one of the clearest examples of this shift was the rise of the mean girl archetype. Across television, magazines, psychology books, and talk shows, people were increasingly told that girls had their own hidden form of aggression. Not physical violence, not punching walls or getting into fights, but something more subtle: gossip, manipulation, exclusion, emotional cruelty. The idea was that boys hurt you physically, girls hurt you psychologically. Violence stopped being imagined as masculine and became something feminine too, just in a different form. Now, this discourse absolutely exploded in the early 2000s. You had best-selling books like Rachel Simmons' Odd Girl Out and Rosalind Wiseman's Queen Bees and Wannabes. You also had huge Oprah segments on girls' bullying. Organizations like the Ophelia Project even framed relational aggression as a kind of epidemic affecting girls everywhere, regardless of class or background. Now, what's important here is that many feminist scholars originally had a much more nuanced analysis. Writers like Lynn Michael Brown weren't saying that girls were naturally cruel or manipulative, quite the opposite actually. So their argument was that girls are socialized to suppress anger and direct confrontation. They are taught to be polite, accommodating, emotionally controlled. In other words, frustration and aggression don't disappear, they just get redirected sideways towards other girls instead of upwards towards figures of authority. In that reading, girl fighting wasn't proof that women are inherently toxic. It was a symptom of patriarchy, a symptom of what happens when girls are denied healthy ways to express anger or power. But once these ideas entered mainstream culture, the structural critique slowly disappeared while the stereotype remained. What started as an analysis of gender oppression turned into a generalized story about female psychology. The mean girl stopped being a social symptom and became a feature of womanhood. And this is exactly what postfeminism does. It takes feminist ideas like empowerment, confidence, or sisterhood, but strips them away from larger questions about society and power. Instead of asking why women are pushed into competition with each other, or why they are taught to repress anger and insecurity, the focus shifts entirely onto individual women and their behavior, their psychology. That way the problem is no longer sexism or patriarchy, the problem becomes women themselves. Women are told that they need to heal, stop being jealous, support one another, and fix their own behavior. Media narratives increasingly suggested that female aggression was the unintended consequence of women's liberation, that after decades of feminism, women had simply become better at hurting one another. With empowerment came aggression. And this is precisely why someone like Candace Owens is so interesting. She doesn't just participate in this mean girl culture, she embodies its contradictions. As a millennial woman shaped by postfeminism, she's both a product of the girl boss era and one of its fiercest critics. Even during her more liberal years as CEO of Degree 180, traces of postfeminism discourse were already visible in her writing, especially around the idea that feminism had gone too far. So it's not surprising to me that she leans so heavily into the mean girl stereotype today, because it aligns perfectly with her broader anti-feminist worldview. I mean, she literally wrote a book titled "Make Him a Sandwich" and turned it into a merch brand. Her vision of womanhood is deeply cynical, and in many ways it mirrors the messaging promoted in parts of the Turning Point USA ecosystem, including some of Erika Kirk's speeches to young conservative women.
And make it fun. Be like, what do you want to eat? And then have them make a menu, and then it's a good challenge for you. Make things fun. Don't look at it as I have to. I get to serve my husband. I get to submit unto my husband because he's submitting himself to the Lord.
So if there's one thing to remember from this section, it's that Candace Owens going mean girl on Erika Kirk is not just interpersonal drama. It's not just girl fighting. The way she performs and weaponizes female meanness actually echoes a broader post-feminist moment in which women's conflicts and insecurities were used to argue that feminism had gone too far. Mean girl behavior became cultural proof that empowered women were narcissistic and manipulative, and Candace Owens actively taps into that narrative because it ultimately serves to degrade women and discredit feminism itself. Both Candace Owens and Erika Kirk are competing in their own way for the future of the American right. Since Charlie Kirk's death, the US right has basically blown up into pieces, with everyone trying to claim Charlie's legacy. Basically, we could say that the American right is now split between an older, neoconservative, strongly pro-Israel conservatism embodied by Trump, Turning Point USA, Erika Kirk, and figures from the Daily Wire. Opposing them is a more populist, internet-driven right that is skeptical of foreign intervention, suspicious of elite geographical consensus, and often deeply conspiratorial. That camp includes people like Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson, and many others. What's interesting to me is that Charlie Kirk's death was initially framed as the beginning of a massive backlash against the left and an opportunity to unite the right. But what happened is very different. The event exposed deep fractures within the right itself. Candace Owens, who calls herself conservative while simultaneously distancing herself from both the left and right, is heavily involved in this fracturing. She has distanced herself from Trump and now claims that she and Charlie were anti-war, while the people at Turning Point USA supposedly betrayed those values in order to align themselves with the Republican establishment and their donors. Since leaving the Daily Wire in 2024, Owens has also become much more openly conspiratorial and has adopted an anti-Semitic rhetoric. And this is where The Bride of Charlie comes in. The title sounds like celebrity drama, but the series is actually part of a much larger ideological battle. Through the attention-grabbing, mean girl framing, Candace foments tensions that go far beyond this individual feud. Here's an example. In the final episodes, she uses a tweet from Matt Walsh, who is part of the opposing Daily Wire camp, to draw a parallel between Erika Kirk and a supposedly grieving widow accused of poisoning her husband for money and who then wrote a book about helping children children deal with trauma.
I was just stunned by it because I have to assume he did exactly zero due diligence on this case. After Corey Richins murdered her husband, she at first played the role of a grieving widow for an entire year. In fact, she was so bold in her grieving widow stage that she wrote a children's book regarding grieving, and she did a little local book tour where she actually repeats some of the things that we've heard Erika say, like, the nights are the hardest. And it took them until May of 2023 to bring charges against her. So more than a year. Do you know how they built that case? People who actually cared about Eric offered various details, and none of these points in various details about how Erika is grieving would ever survive in the court of law. Ironically, in this case against Corey Richins, for which she was ultimately found guilty, the prosecutors played the 911 call and said explicitly that it didn't sound like a grieving widow.
This shows that the Bride of Charlie is a strategic feud within a feud, or what some call the MAGA civil war. The Bride of Charlie has pulled in an insane number of views, proving that Mean Girl content can generally rally people to your side. It becomes an entry point for viewers who may not follow the details of American politics or even know about the fractures inside the American right. As we discussed earlier, Mean Girl culture has shaped popular culture for a big chunk of the 21st century. People love watching women fight each other. It's entertainment first. The politics behind it comes second. Yet for someone like Candace Owens, the politics are what matters. She comes from Turning Point USA, the organization which, according to liberal journalist Ezra Klein, was doing politics the right way. Turning Point prides itself for embodying a new style of politics, one that is embedded in culture, that resonates with young people and go get them where they are, on college campuses and social media. The content of their politics, though, primarily serves an old white elite that doesn't give a flying fuck about young people's future. The Charlie Kirk, Candace Owens, and Erika Kirk are nothing more than puppets subjected to donors' wallets. A quick read of their Wikipedia page reveals that you and I don't live in the same reality as those people. Their relatability is a facade, and now that Charlie's dead and that they are turning against each other, some of the masks are falling, and that's what I find entertaining, personally. They are all fighting each other. It's not just an Erika and Candace thing. They are all using drama for attention-seeking purposes, to sharpen the division, to be the winning side. You see, people who think they are smarter than you will rant about the fact that the left can't unite, but look at what's going on the right side of the political spectrum right now. And not just in the US. I feel like we've been so conditioned to the nonetheless realistic narrative that fascism is on the rise that we sometimes fail to see those moments of weakness. History has shown that what looked certain can swiftly break apart if opposition can turn moments of weakness into opportunities. What we're facing right now is an opportunity to create an honest and hopeful alternative to the chaos of establishment politics and the rise of unapologetically reactionary ideologies. So let's seize it. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, to subscribe if it's not already done, to hype. I would like to say a big thank you to the sponsor of today's video, Saily. So if you want to check it out, download Saily using the link below and use code ALICE at checkout to get 15% off your first data plan. Big thank you to my patrons as well, with a special thank to top tier patrons. I'm literally a Folk, Hamid, Shunak, Sibev, Nofol, Fred, Hongxing Wang, Ejno, Patrick Button, Jeff Lee, Tayeb Matin, Nick, Brandon, James Ojwal, Patrick, Boris, Ria, Koriji, Tristan, Christopher, Jan, Donage, Alex, Manuel, Christopher France, and Perry, and thank you to the other ones who prefer to stay anonymous. That's it for me. Okay, I'll see you very soon. Salut!